organized jointly by Baraza and URI Europe. I just want to inform you that session will be recorded and published later on URI Europe YouTube channel, so that if you don't want to appear on the record, kindly ask you to switch off your camera or change your profile username. Thank you for understanding, and now I will start the recording. Okay, welcome again to all. It is my honor and pleasure to be together with you on behalf of URI Europe. I'm Angelina, URI Europe CC Liaison Officer living in Sofia, Bulgaria. I will be your Zoom host during the next hour. This fifth session, with particular focus on Italy, Islam in Italy, an intercultural, interreligious and citizenship challenge, is part of the webinar series co-organized by Baraza and URI Europe during the month of February on the occasion of the World Interfaith Harmony Week. I will provide some technical details and then we'll pass to our partner Rias to introduce our speakers and our moderator for today. The webinar, as I already said, will be recorded, so please mute yourself during the session, of course, unless you want to say something. Otherwise, you are most welcome to use the chat option for interaction. Also, we would like to hear from you, to receive feedback from you, and to understand if the webinar was successful and if you have any ideas to continue to collaborate on the topic and to hear more about this. So I'm inviting you to take a piece of paper and take notes during the talks, and at the end, at the very last 5 minutes of the session, you will be invited to answer to 2 questions: what you learned from the speakers and what you are going to do with this information after the webinar. And as I already said, you are most welcome to use the chat option. Please let us start now by introducing yourselves. Please write the name, country you are calling from. Also, you can write the name of your organization and a few words about the organization if you would like to share. We are going to write the questions into the chat and we will remind you to answer to them at the end. This is all from me for now, and I will pass to Rias to introduce Baraza as an organization and our dear speakers for today. Rias, to you.
Thanks, Angelina. Thank you. Good afternoon and good evening to all of you. Thank you for being with us for this webinar series to mark the United Nations World Interfaith Harmony Week. Of course, events take place over the course of the month. We've organized a program of subjects in partnership with URI Europe, and I pay tribute to Angelina, to Karima, and to Leila as well, good colleagues of mine who I've enjoyed working with over the past few weeks. I am Riaz Ravat. I am the Secretary General of Baraza, which is an independent international non-profit organization founded in 2017 in Munich in Germany. Baraza means council or meeting place in the Swahili language. A Baraza can be an informal meeting or an official council. It is a place where people from many different backgrounds meet to chat, to exchange ideas, and to solve problems. Baraza's work is expanding all the time. We were responsible for the concept, planning, and delivery of the exhibition, Tolerance, Understanding, Coexistence, which is the Sultanate of Oman's message of Islam. This global initiative has been touring the world for more than 10 years. We've been present in 40 countries and have built up good relations with many individuals and organizations to promote an international mindset based on tolerance in all areas of culture, religion, and understanding among nations. Please follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Our website, www.baraza.ngo, you will find a free downloadable resource for children Our coloring book for kids, I have a copy here, on world religions, is available in many different languages. I also encourage you to use the chat facility today. As Angelina mentioned, we want these webinars to be interactive and thought-provoking. In the chat facility, please write down what you've learned and what actions you might take to promote tolerance, understanding, and coexistence. Baraza is a subscription membership organization. We'd be delighted if you were to be able to join us. If you're interested, please access our website or email us at finance@baraza.ngo. It is my pleasure to welcome the first speaker to this series today, and it's Professor Paolo Luigi Branca. Born in Milan, Professor Branca is Associate Professor of Arabic and Islamic Studies at the Catholic University of Milan. He focused his studies on Islam and modernity and has written very many publications to this effect. After his introduction, Professor Paolo will represent three further speakers, including Professor Antonio, Professor Francesca, and Iman Barmaki as well. Professor Paolo, a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you very much for all that you have done to make today happen. I very much look forward to hearing you and colleagues speak over the next few minutes. Over to you. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the organizer for this opportunity given not only to me, but to us and to Italy, because as you know, Italy used to be considered quite an homogeneous country with a single culture, with a single religion, the Catholic Roman one. But in last years, we became, like many other European countries, a plural place with people from the world, with languages, with culture, with religions of different origin. So we are new, maybe we are late, maybe in comparison with other situation, but I think this is a big opportunity, not only I studied Arabic and Islamic culture in Venice. I began 40 years ago, so in a total different of my city too. It was rare to find immigrants, especially from Arabic and Islamic countries, very few. But now Milan, we have only in Milan officially 50,000 Egyptians. So Milan became the capital of Egyptians of Italy, and every day I speak Arabic, Egyptian Arabic in the streets. So I couldn't imagine before 40 years to find in my own town this situation. More of that, the principal component of the new immigrants are not Muslim, but Orthodox Christians from Eastern Europe. But we do even less about them than we know about Muslim. It is very strange, but another kind of Christianity is less knew by common people in Italy than Muslim. Maybe this is the result of the representation, the mediatic representation of the phenomenon. So the focus is only about Muslims and bad Muslims, of course, terrorists or political dangerous movement, but the reality is totally different. So I'm so happy to have this opportunity, not only for me, but or my colleagues and friends, we haven't in Italy a model, our special model to deal with the phenomenon. As you know, in France, you find a sort of assimilation, inclusive and assimilationist model, but it doesn't work. And in British Island, you find maybe a communitarian model, but also not working very well. In Italy, any model. This is typical of our country, but in spite of that, we are trying to do something. So I give the speech to my colleague and friend, Dr. Professor Cuciniello, who is very, very specialized in this subject. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, thank you,
Antonio,
Paolo. I kindly ask Angelina to share my PowerPoint presentation, and I will, okay, thank you. And Angelina, I will tell the number of the slide so that you can go on, okay, just the number, okay. Well, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, okay. Well, first of all, many thanks for the invitation to this webinar as part of an initiative that promotes an increasingly necessary goal, namely to know the others and respect them in their diversity. Today, as Professor Branca said, I'm going to talk about the presence of students with non-Italian citizenship in Italy. Therefore, I will be speaking to you about the challenge of intercultural education as declined by the Council of Europe and in the Italian legislation. Moreover, in relation to this topic, I will emphasize the importance of textbooks revision in order to get rid of negative stereotypes and distorted views of the other. Finally, I will briefly illustrate the first results of my research about Islam in 10 religion textbooks of upper secondary schools in Italy. Number 3. So Italy has been transformed from an immigrant country exporter of manual labor into an immigrant country. Immigrants' presence after its first appearance in the early 19th keeps on reporting rates of increase. This means that Italy, like other many European countries, has become an important area of international migration influx. The foreign population is distributed all over the Italian country in a dissimilar way, as Professor Branca said.
Can I not have a team?
Is it okay? Angelina, everything is all right?
Everything is all right.
Okay.
I will invite everyone to mute themselves.
Okay, sorry. So I was saying it is mostly settled in the regions of the center north, particularly in Lombardy, where we live and work. Me, Professor Branca, and Iman that will speak after me, which give Lombardy, which gives hospitality to about 1/4 of all immigrants living in Italy. Number 4. The rapid growth of the migration phenomenon has impacted on the school system too. According to the data provided by the Ministry of Education, the number of students with non-Italian citizenship has changed from the number of 629,360 in the school year 2008-2009 to 857,729 in the school year 2018-2019. All this corresponds to 10% of the total school population. This is a presence that is a characteristic of some geographical areas, as I said before, especially in the north and the center of the country, in particular in large cities such as Milan, Turin, and Rome. And Lombardy is still the first region with the highest number of foreign students. This group of students, I mean the foreign ones, is however a component in transformation given the constant increase of students with non-Italian citizenship born in Italy from migrant parents, which today represent the majority of non-Italian students at the school. It means usually we call them second generations. They are exactly, according to the data of Ministry of Education, 553,176. Number five, sorry. With respect to the origin of the students, Romanians are always the most numerous, followed by Albanians and Moroccans, which are countries of historical migration to Italy. Among the most frequent nationalities present in Italy, Asians are confirmed. In any case, over 200 citizenships are present in the Italian school system, that is almost the whole world. For this reason, Italy performs differently if compared to other European states, where the presence of foreign students has less ethnic heterogeneity and more concentration of national groups in local contexts. Number 6, this is a nice example of lower secondary school in Milan. You can see 20 nationalities, including the Italian one, of course, and 15 languages of origin, included the Italian language as well. I give you just some time to give a look. Okay, number 7. As a matter of fact, this situation is associated with cultural, linguistic, and religious differences which are present in the school training system. It means 60.5% of immigrants in Italy between 6 and 17 years old do not belong to the Catholic religion. The majority is Muslim, followed by Catholic, Orthodox, and at distance we can see the presence of Buddhists and Protestants. Number 8. So the Italian school has been becoming increasingly a multicultural school, a feat of course, encounter between different cultures. And the concept of intercultural education and dialogue strongly promoted by the EU with the proclamation of the European Year of Intercultural Dialogue in 2008 as a key competence for teachers working in changing and diverse classrooms is now quite common in Italy, not only in books, but also in the area of school legislation. And among the various educational policy documents of the Council of Europe, the white paper on intercultural dialogue states the following: promoting intercultural dialogue contributes to the core objective of the Council of Europe, namely preserving and promoting human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. Moreover, UNESCO affirms that the textbooks should offer different perspectives on a given subject and make transparent the national or cultural background against which they are written. Their content should be based on scientific findings. Number 9. According to UNESCO, a certain number of principles can be identified that may guide international action in the field of intercultural education. So we have principle 1, intercultural education respects the cultural identity of the learner through the provision of culturally appropriate and responsive quality education for all. Principle 2, intercultural education provides every learner with the cultural knowledge, attitudes, and skills necessary to achieve active and full participation in society. Principle 3, intercultural education provides all learners with cultural knowledge, attitudes, and skills to enable them to contribute to respect, understanding, and solidarity among individuals, ethnic, social, cultural, and religious groups and nations. As far as the Italian situation, the Italian Ministry of Education has defined the role of intercultural education as the fostering of positive coexistence, preventing the creation of stereotypes and prejudices towards other people and cultures, and overcoming any form of ethnocentrism. In particular, intercultural education is defined not merely as a response to the issues raised by the presence of pupils of immigrant origin, but includes the complex issues deriving from the contact between different cultures as one of the most important strategies to combat racism. Number 10. Within education systems, the issue of textbooks and learning materials has recently become a subject of concern. Textbooks in some cases still show a stereotyped and ethnocentric vision of the world, following a monocultural approach. That's why Koichiro Matsuura declared, "We must learn to know ourselves and the other who is different from us. This requires that the curriculum and textbooks must be jointly revised so that they are free of hate messages, prejudices, and distortions. It also means that all education systems should ensure that basic knowledge of the world's main civilizations, religions, and belief systems is transmitted to each generation." So in an era of growing regional, ethnic, and religious tension, it becomes obvious that learning materials are not totally free of bias and value judgments. This is most recognizable in history texts, but it is not limited to them. Textbooks on geography, social sciences, and humanities may also contain partial or biased information. So it becomes more and more necessary to have a perception of textbooks as a means of promoting peace and mutual understanding among all nations. Number 11. Scenes of particular relevance in school settings are inaccurate and misleading representations of Muslims and Islam in textbooks. I focused my critical investigation on the image of Islam and Muslim coming out from the most widespread 10 religion textbooks in upper secondary schools in current use in Italy, all approved by the Italian Episcopal Conference and published from 2014 to 2017. So let us start with some examples showing the space dedicated to Islam. It is usually between 4 and 10 pages. Only in one case, there are 23 pages. Therefore, it has been noticed that the representation of Islam is often reduced to essentials, and this creates a lack of appropriate knowledge and absence of the complex history of Islam as a religion. One can conclude that Islam and Muslims' depiction is not totally accurate, so students are provided with the minor information since the topic is not always analyzed deeply. As far as the titles and chapters and paragraphs are concerned, it has been noticed that they generally introduce information essentially related to the origin of Islam, the role of Muhammad as a religious and political leader, the first center of Islam connected to the separation between Sunni and Shia, the concept of faith, the sources, Quran and Sunnah, the pillars of Islam, the concept of jihad, daily life and women generally connected to veil, marriage and polygamy. So there is a clear lack of diachronic approach, considering, for example, the development of different Islamic legal and theological schools. On the other hand, when it comes to modernity, fundamentalism and interreligious dialogue prevail. Just in one case, up to 10 books, there is an effort to adopt an autobiographical approach. It could be a different way, of course, of presenting Islam. 12. Moreover, it is known that images in the textbooks influence the learning process. Students often see pictures before reading the text, and these pictures can enhance the power of imagination of the students. It has been noted that in different cases, images can be out of the context, and some of them do not include captions, attributions, or citations. 13. Then they can be stereotypical images, but in different cases, they represent also the cultural diversities within the same society. Finally, images are very rarely provided with the reading activities. For meaningful learning, students need to make connection between visual and verbal representations. So just to conclude, we can say that the image of Islam remains quite limited, and the Italian curricula are not always able to respond to the changing features of Italian society. Although the new textbooks for religious education included more information about other religions, textbooks do not convey sufficient information about the moral, ideological, religious, and cultural distinctiveness of Islam, of course. As a positive fact, unlike past researches, it should be appreciated that the analyzed textbooks do not communicate real stereotypes or offensive cliches, either in the text or in the didactic apparatus. So much has been done, but much more needs to be done. 14. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Antonio, for your presentation with a lot of details, very interesting. But I think the most important thing is to hear now the two witnesses, our friends, young Muslim ladies from Italy, with a direct experience on the field about we try to introduce. So I give the speech to Iman Barmaki.
Yeah, hello again. First of all, thank you very much for inviting us to this webinar. It's a pleasure to be here and to share with you my personal story as a second generation of immigrant and also as Italo-Moroccan women, which is an important part of me, of who I am. I was born in Morocco, and at the age of 13, I moved to Italy with my mother and my little brother Hamza to join my father Aziz in order to be all together again as a family. My father had illegally immigrated to Italy many years earlier, and he managed to find a job and to get a residence permit. When I arrived in Italy in June 1997, the first obstacle was the language, but knowing French helped me a lot in learning Italian a few months. My parents enrolled me in a local public middle school where foreign students were given the opportunity to attend Italian language courses. So over the first months, 4 hours a day were dedicated to learn the language. And I gradually became more fluent, and I was able to spend more time with my new Italian classmates. Making new friends and feeling accepted by the others was not too difficult, as in my class there was already a Muslim girl of Moroccan origin who was born and raised in Italy. So it was really easy. Our immigration was not a shock for me. I was young, and I came from Casablanca, which was bigger and more populated than Milan. After middle school, I attended an aviation high school. I was the only girl among many male students in the class. Surprisingly, at the beginning, gender stereotype among my classmates was the biggest problem, rather than my racial or religious origins. Being a Muslim or being Moroccan was not an obstacle. Being a girl was a complication. The first sentence I heard from them was, what's a girl doing here? But they learned to accept me when I started to play football with them. In the 90s, the aviation world was male dominated, and schools were not equipped for female students. In fact, there was no women changing room in the school gym. It was built the year I arrived. During my high school years, I started questioning myself about my identity. I was not lost, but my identity was floating between two words that seemed distant from each other. I started looking for answers in psychology, in philosophy books, with no success. My philosophical readings led me to reflect on the relationship between cause and effect. So if the effect, which is the human being, is imperfect, then also the cause that generated it is equally imperfect. So God is imperfect, and therefore God is nothing more than an invention of man. You can imagine the shock of my grandfather when I shared this idea with him. He was the imam of a mosque in Casablanca. I had so many discussions on this subject with him and also with my cousins, but they never made me feel unaccepted or unwelcomed. And I think I was happy to share with them my ideas and to discuss them all this issue. After graduating from high school, I chose to go. I chose to study economics at the Catholic University of Milan, where I met Professor Paolo Branca and also Professor Antonio, because it was the only evening course in the city. I took up a full-time job to pay for my tuition and to financially support my family. At that time, my father was the breadwinner, and therefore any help, any financial help was needed. In this university, students are required to attend theology courses aimed at expanding their knowledge of the Christian message. I think this course marked my first real approach to the concept of religion. As a child, I was a Muslim by tradition. I was just imitating the adults of my family. Thanks to these courses, I started to further explore the similarities and the differences between Islam and Christianity, which brought me to finally discover myself and became a more conscious Muslim. the first sign of identity crisis started when the Bossi-Fini immigration law was approved in 2002. This law introduced new measures, among which the fingerprinting for anyone requesting or renewing the resident permit. So to have my fingerprints taken by the police underlined my status of extracomunitaria. So in a non-European person, a foreigner, according to this law, second generation, so like me, people like me, born or raised in Italy to non-Italian parents, were allowed to stay on the national territory for family reasons only until they turned 18. After this age, they have to obtain a residence permit for work or study purpose. The permit for study purpose entices people to work for a maximum 20 hours per week, which is not enough for those like me who had to pay for private university whose fee were high. So my right to legally reside in Italy depends on a work contract, and the work contract depends on the resident contract, which was mandatory. In this last one, the resident contract, the employer had to declare that the workers' accommodation met the minimum parameters stipulated by the law for public housing. In addition, the employer had to sign a commitment to pay for the travel expenses to my return in Morocco in case of job loss. At that time, when the Bossi-Fini came into effect, I was working at the portfolio company of a large Italian banking group, and my contract could not be renewed because the house I shared with my family was only a few square meters shy of the parameters established by law. And my Italian colleague was living in a house that did not comply with these parameters, but his contract was renewed at the same time. So migrant citizens, in order to have their papers renewed, had to prove that they live in homes that were comfortable enough as provided by regional law. Losing my job would have meant not only being separated from my family, but also having to return to Morocco, which is a foreign country. Fortunately, my HR manager signed the resident contract without the compliance of the house with the parameters, violating the law. Thanks to him, I was able to stay in Italy. As a family, we had to sell the house where we lived and to get a bigger one at a considerable cost. So this law, on one hand, emphasized that I was an extracomunitaria, and the other one, all the people around me have never questioned my Italian identity. So from the social point of view, I was Italian, but from the legal point of view, I was not. I was not Moroccan either, because I was culturally different. Fortunately, I have learned over time to enhance the complexity of my different identities. It's not identity, it's identities because I have more than one. today I like to describe myself telling that my last name is Persian. My first name is Arabic. Geographically, I'm Moroccan. Culturally, I'm Italian. Historically, I'm Francophone. A kaleidoscope of identities that sometimes mesh smoothly and some other times tend to clash. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, dear Iman, because we learn from your direct experience the paradoxical character of the human experience. So we are not speaking about general system of believing of but also of everyday issues, everyday obstacles, everyday contradiction in our life. And so I think it was very, very precious, your witnesses. And now we move to Francesca. We have who has a different but very significant experience too, and I underline the role of women in this field. So thank you, Francesca. Please, I give you a speech.
Thank you very much. I'm very glad to participate this evening and to know about this association, Baraza, which also reminds me of Munich, which is the place where I did my PhD and where first I met Islam as a religious phenomenon. So quite an important place for me. What I would like to talk about this evening is a different sort of experience. So not very much my personal experience, rather the one of the institute that I direct, which is the Ibn Rushd Averroes Institute in Italy. There we do some sort of a double purpose, which is on the one hand teaching Islam to young Muslims in Italy, and on the other hand fostering the teaching of Muslims. So we interact with schools, public schools generally, that might have issues with religious integration, which in Italy is still very much a problem, as you might have heard from previous sayings, and how Iman has been able to talk about very deeply without staying in stereotypes about the topic. So I will not say anything about it. The topic is complete. But I'll try to say something about some projects we have been trying to put forth. So our institute is Istituto Averroes. The name is, of course, a reminding of Ibn Rushd, which I have always found a model of Islamic thought for Europe nowadays. And what we do again is teaching for young Muslims and coordinating the way young Muslims are taught. This is because we have quite a difficult situation of Muslim native institutions in Italy. So I will talk briefly about that, then present our main work, which has been until now to publish and edit books that would teach Islamic education, and then to have some methodological conclusion on the issue of educating young Muslims in Italy. So the situation of Muslim schools, but this is an inappropriate name. Let's say there are educational institutions, about 300 in Italy. And these are most of the times informal gatherings in associations, for example, mosques. But again, as you might know, we have very little to no mosques in Italy due to some lack of appropriate government support. So it's generally informal gatherings held in a different variety of places, but there are about 300. And this is quite a high number, and we get about 25 to 30,000 students that have attended these sort of events until now. So mainly though, the program of these schools is very, I'd say not systematic. So mainly Arabic language is taught, a little bit about religion, and about religion usually mainly the Quran is taught, sometimes some moral values, but again there is no type of systematicity, and this is a very big problem, because on the other hand, as you have seen, there are some textbooks in public schools which talk about Islam in some, I would say, critical terms. And this puts the students in front of a situation where the group they belong to has been talked about, and sometimes they would like to argue that things are different, things are more complicated. In their experience, things work in another way, and they do not have the instruments, the tools to say so. So teaching Islam to young Muslims is a thing that is crucial for integration, at the same level of working in public schools, I believe. So our purpose has been to systematize the study plan, of course, as a first beginning, so to give all the basis of Islamic thought to children, translating and publishing textbooks, because in Italy, many times mosques or associations use textbooks that are imported from Morocco most of the times, or from Albania. So they are old textbooks many times, the ones that the parents have used, and so they are not attractive for children, and they're in a language which the children most of the times cannot speak as native speakers. So there is really this big obstacle of design and content and language in this sort of textbooks. And we have also, I'll just say that without developing it further, produced a guide for teachers, and we do organize laboratories for teacher education and seminaries for them. So the Islamic studies curriculum that we have worked on is an intercultural project, and we have been involved with the UK, India, and South Africa, where the madrasa system is much more developed than in Italy. And this study plan is mainly with a clear goal, and the goal is to teach the basis, the so-called fara'id in Arabic, in the first 3 to 4 years. So kids come to the institute at 6 years of age, and by the time they've finished primary education, they know the basics. And the basics are the basics of practice, of course, the 5 pillars of Islam, but as well the basis of faith. So we do not put faith first or practice first, because we believe it's an incomplete approach to Islam. Both things have to follow step by step. And as well, of course, with an emphasis on behavior, public and private. The method is by yearly repetition. So we have tried to adapt the method outlined by Ibn Khaldun. So again, the effort is to use creatively classical Islamic thought in a way that can benefit Muslim population in the West. So we have a master plan, which is for each year different subjects, and these are the classical subjects, so jurisprudence or practice, which is fiqh, a hadith or the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, seerah, his life, tariq, the history of the prophets, and so on and so forth. But this, of course, is not only the need of filling a void in their education. So we do not just want to give more material, but to give a theoretical approach. And what we follow is what Al-Ghazali has been putting forth in the revival of the religious sciences, saying that knowledge already exists in the human soul, like the seed inside the soil. So what we're trying to do is, as Ghazali said, that through learning, that potential might become reality. And of course, this tries to involve both practical and theoretical results. And on the theoretical basis of the method, I have been publishing a book, which is unfortunately only available in Italian, which is Un Corano che cammina, meaning a walking Quran, which is a reference of the Prophet ﷺ educational method, as described by his wife Aisha. And this is again to highlight the fact that, in my opinion, Islam in Italy is a challenge that has to go both ways. Both Islamic thought has to be applied in a way which is creative and culturally relevant to the Italian culture. And on the other way, in the Italian culture, there has to be put more effort to know better Islam, not just a historical phenomenon, but also as something which is very much alive today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, dear Francesca. I hope we gave you a short but significant of some issues of the presence and the work of the role of young Muslims in Italy, in public school, but also in their own institution. I hope to keep in touch with you and with others after the transmission of this speech, this meeting on the social media. But if you have any question, I think we have 10 minutes again. Angelina?
Yes, we have 10 minutes for questions and answers. Please.
Excuse me? I can speak?
Please, please.
You hear me? Yes. I don't have, in reality, I don't have questions, but I have a special thank for this webinar. The topic is very, very important. I'm Thamer Mahfoudi from Zitouna University from Tunisia, PhD researcher. I'm interested on Muslim minorities affairs in Europe, especially Germany, and I was surprised about the Italian case. And I will, in the next days or months, I will take some of the participants about common work, and I'm very, very happy to join you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think it is very important to build up something with the other European countries and to share experience and suggestion, because the law is different, the situation is different, but the goals are the same. So I think this meeting could be a good first step in this direction, if you agree, and we could exchange also our emails and others.
Yes, a good idea.
Yes. To keep in touch, to keep in together. Please, yes. Please, Riyadh.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paolo. I think, Ahmed, you are before me. I will let you go first.
Oh, please.
Okay, thank you very much for inviting me to tonight's session. I would like just to thank to you for this tonight's speeches, and I would also like to add to the Dr. Francesca's speech that right now our community, Islamic community of Bosniaks in Italy, we have recent books in religious education for the primary level, and they are divided into 3 levels. So right now we are translating them from Bosnian to Italian, and we hope so that we will have them available until the end of 2021. And those books are published last year, yeah, here in Bosnia. Thank you so much for inviting me tonight, and it was really useful.
Thank you, Ahmed.
Thank you. Thank you. Can I, Professor Paolo, just to thank all of the speakers for a really insightful session. You all gave so much difference, but you all complemented each other as well in talking about Islam in Italy and giving different angles. I found that fascinating. I have a question for Professor Francesca. I myself am a product of the madrasa system in the UK. So based on your observations of the UK and other countries that you've looked at, which elements would you learn and adapt and evolve, and which bits would you rather remove?
So on the one hand, I do like the system in which children go to public school here in Italy. and then they attend some sort of a different institution in the weekend. And this, I know, is not the most popular sort of model in the mind of Muslims. Many Muslims also here in Italy would like to open their own institution, but I do believe it is better really not to segregate. So we do need to have our own spaces as a community, but I do not believe that the majority of our time has to be spent in spaces that only contain us. I do believe that it's enough one day a week to recharge spiritually, to gain the knowledge that you need, or as some other places do after school, some sort of 1 hour, 2 hours where kids are in the mosque and they get help in doing homeworks and then they go back home. But not to make this sort of need for community to become our whole life, because then that it's a problem when we go out, and we do need to do so.
Thank you. I need to hear you more often. Brilliant. You are absolutely brilliant. Thank you.
Maybe you know, then in Italy, we have the official teaching in public school about Catholic religion, but it is the name only. The contents are not only about Catholic religion, but all religions. So we should go ahead and recognize the reality. Our classes are composed by children of different religions, and we should take the opportunity to make religion a matter like the other ones, with a scientific and historical approach, with the specialists as teachers, sharing with other communities the preparation of lessons and materials. So I am a dreamer, I know, but I think we will see something new, inshallah.
Can I ask another question just about, you illustrated really well the way in which Islam is taught. Can I ask a question whether you're aware of how other faiths, so the Hindu faith or Sikh faith, or indeed others, are taught? What is their situation compared to Islam, for example?
I'm sorry, I can't hear very well.
Can you hear me now? Yeah. So it was a question about how other religions are taught. So Sikh, Hindu, for example, how they are taught in Italy compared to Islam.
No, there is, we haven't any agreement with other religions in the public schools. So this push every community to build up something internal in their field, with classes and lesson in the weekend, first of all. And also sometimes they pretend to teach in Arabic, for instance, Egyptian, all the programs to for exams every year, exams in Arabic, hoping to go back to their original country. But this is very dangerous, in my opinion, because young people refuse to learn the entire program in 2 languages. So it's very heavy, and the risk is they reject their original language and culture and even religion, because they are forced to work double respect the other one. So I think something shared in the public and normal schools is the best way. but it is not easy for political and even religious reason. Of course, the Catholic Church has a big power in Italy, but at the same time, the Catholic Church, is working very much with immigrants from every religion, but focuses about concrete needs: housing, working, eating, and so on. I think we should to take in consideration much more the cultural and spiritual field too. Maybe we are not able to do that, but I hope we will be, inshallah.
I would like to make brief comment, maybe. Thank you all for the insightful and complementary talks. If I look to German situation, or generally, I think that if you teach in a school all major faith, that sends a signal of diversity and of understanding. So children will understand that there is different ways and that to learn about others and how to live together. So that's the one thing. The other thing is that oftentimes children, let's say from Muslim families, and I'm sure is maybe the same for other faiths, from home, there is not necessarily the possibility to teach them about their faith. So I see somehow the need of both, and I don't, so also to have some religious educations somewhere, maybe in public schools, I'm not sure, but everybody should have it then. And so I haven't come to a conclusion here. I just see that both of them are somehow important, because one cannot know that parents are able to support their children in that.
Of course, there is not a single right answer, but I think we have to share many good questions.
Yes, I would like to encourage at the tertiary level, also at universities and in technical colleges, that this need for students to get spiritual discussions, and as has been said, they don't get it in home. What they get in churches and in mosques and elsewhere is often far too little, and there are ones, and I think there is a great area for opening this up too as something to do and regarded as part of charity, not just physical needs.
Yes, we use to visit mosques and Muslim visit churches, but only for some special occasions to exchange greetings with the responsible people only. I think it's better to live together the everyday life, and not only to organize official occasion of a meeting between
no.
big
Oh, no, I was not wanting meetings. I was wanting courses, more courses at university. At university courses, you are talking only about ones at the primary and secondary school level. At university, there is a big gap, and there has been, even for Christians, for many decades, there is not enough of bringing in the mind, and there is a great interest of a lot of students. If this could be tapped, it would be a great thing to do.
I agree with you. Thank you. Angelina, you are responsible of our
Yes. Wow. Thank you so much, Professor Paolo Branca. Thank you to our amazing speakers for their excellent presentation, and to Imani for her personal story. In the last 5 minutes, I would like to invite you again to answer our 2 questions that they're already into our chat. Tell us one thing that you find good and useful about today's webinar. And the second question is, tell us one thing that you will do as a result of today's webinar. I would like to thanks also to Baraza, our co-host and co-organizer of the webinar series. And last but not the least thing that I would like to say today are a few words about URI, as also co-host and co-organizer of those incredible and very valuable webinars. URI is a network, actually the biggest interfaith grassroots network in the world, that has more than 1,000 interfaith groups all around the world. We call those interfaith groups cooperation circles, or CCs. They are self-organized and self-funded interfaith groups, and actually they are at the core of URI, United Religions Initiative. If you want to form such a group, you need at least 7 people from 3 different religions, spiritual expressions, or indigenous traditions, including atheists and agnostics. In Europe, there are 61 cooperation circles, and we are happy to have as a member group our dear friends from Baraza. They're URI members since last year, but we already collaborate with them in producing together 2 editions of their incredible Toolkit for Children interfaith coloring book. Probably many of you already know about this. Also, there is one very active group in Italy, in Milan, actually, Associazione Joint. I don't know if any of our speakers are aware of this group or not.
No.
But they're very active and you can contact them as well. And to learn more about URI Europe, please visit our webpage on www.urieurope.org. Also, if you are interested when the next webinar is, the 6th one, it will take place next week on Wednesday, 24th at 8 p.m. Central European Time. And it will be about Christian-Muslim relations. Welcome to join us again. With that, I officially close the session. And if someone wants to stay for a few more minutes, you are more than welcome to stay. For those who would like to leave, you are free to leave. Thank you again. Thank you to all speakers, Professor Paolo Branca, Professor Antonio, Francesca, Imani, thank you, Rios, and thank you all for your active participation. Have a nice evening or the rest of the day, and see you on the next call.
Thank you, and let's keep
Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you very
Goodbye.
much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Let's keep in
Nice to
touch,
meet you
please.
all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
It's been
Bye-bye.
so interesting.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Professor Antonio, have you got
Thank you, everyone. I'm